May 23rd, 1945, 03:12 hours. Shuri Castle approach Okinawa. Private First Class James Matsuda crouched in darkness so complete he could not see his own hand 6 inches from his face. The air hung thick with humidity and the distant smell of cordite from earlier artillery strikes. Around him the night pressed down like a physical weight. His rifle lay across his lap. 28 pounds. The standard M2 carbine issued to every other man in the 96th Infantry Division weighed 5.2 pounds. The extra 23 pounds came from a battery pack strapped to his back. A cable ran from the pack to a scope mounted on the rifle. The scope was the size of a small telescope. Through that scope, Matsuda could see what no other American soldier could see. He could see in total darkness. He could see the enemy moving through the night 70 yards away. He could see men who believed they were invisible. 3 shapes moved through his field of view. Japanese soldiers. 69 yards northeast, moving toward the American command post. Low crawl, disciplined. They stopped every few yards to listen. Professional infiltrators who had survived months of combat by being careful. Matsuda placed the green crosshairs on the lead shape. The figure appeared as a bright silhouette against the darker background. 67 yards now. Matsuda controlled his breathing. In through the nose. Hold. Exhale slowly through the mouth. His heart rate was steady. His hands were calm. This was his 52nd night of operations. His 37th engagement. The nervousness that had consumed him 7 weeks earlier was gone, replaced by something mechanical, something efficient. He squeezed the trigger. The carbine cracked. The sound was sharp but not loud, muffled by the tropical vegetation. The muzzle flash was minimal. Through the scope still trained on target, Matsuda watched the lead infiltrator jerk backward and collapse. The second man froze, confused, looking for the source of the shot, finding nothing. Matsuda shifted his aim, fired. The second man dropped. The third infiltrator began to rise, trying to retreat, making himself a better target by standing. Matsuda fired a third time. The man fell backward into the darkness. 3 shots, 3 kills, 6 seconds. He deactivated the scope. The green image disappeared. Darkness returned. He sat in his foxhole with the carbine across his lap and felt nothing. No adrenaline surge, no satisfaction, no remorse, nothing. It was too easy now. That was May 23rd. Matsuda's last 3 kills. His final engagement with the M3 carbine, the weapon that turned night into day. But the real story was not those final 3 kills. The real story began 7 weeks earlier, April 1st, 1945, when Matsuda had fired exactly 0 combat rounds with the M3 system, when 23 Americans had died in 72 hours from Japanese night infiltration, when he did not know if the weapon would work, when he did not know if he would survive long enough to find out. This is that story. April 1st, 1945. 2200 hours, Kakazu Ridge. The 96th Infantry Division had been on Okinawa for 72 hours. In that time, they had lost 34 men to night infiltration attacks, small groups of Japanese soldiers crawling through the darkness toward American lines, 10 to 50 men per group, moving silently through drainage ditches and coral outcroppings and tall grass. When they reached the defensive perimeter, they either opened fire at close range or detonated satchel charges against foxholes. American defenders had fired thousands of rounds into the darkness during those 3 nights. They had killed 7 Japanese soldiers. The math was a nightmare. 23 Americans dead, 7 Japanese dead. A casualty ratio of 3.3 to 1 in favor of the enemy. Medical personnel had tagged another 60 American soldiers as combat ineffective, not wounded, exhausted. Unable to function after 3 consecutive nights of fighting an enemy they could not see, the tactical problem was simple. American weapons were designed for daylight combat. The M1 Garand had no magnification. At night, soldiers could not see targets beyond 50 yards. The Japanese attacked from 500 to 700 yards out, just beyond American effective range. Flares provided temporary illumination but created their own problems. A parachute flare burned at 200,000 candle power. It lit a circle roughly 300 yards in diameter for 25 seconds, but it destroyed the night vision of every American soldier who looked at it. When the flare died, defenders were blind for 30 to 45 seconds. Japanese infiltrators used those 30 seconds to close distance. Machine gunners fired blindly into the darkness, spraying rounds at sounds, at movement, at shadows, at nothing. But 150 soldiers in the 96th Infantry Division carried a different weapon, a weapon that had been issued 3 days before the invasion, a weapon so secret that its operators had been forbidden from discussing it with other soldiers. A weapon that used technology 10 years ahead of anything in any army on Earth. The M3 carbine. A standard M2 carbine with an infrared spotlight and an infrared sensitive scope. The spotlight emitted invisible light at 800 nanometers wavelength. The scope converted that infrared light into a visible green image. A soldier using the system could see in complete darkness up to 70 yards. The enemy could not see the infrared light, could not see the soldier, could not see the scope. They only knew they were being shot at when the bullet arrived. The US Army had manufactured approximately 1,700 M3 carbine systems during the war. Approximately 150 had been sent to Okinawa. The 96th Infantry Division received most of them. The soldiers selected to use them had completed a 3-week training program at Fort Belvoir, Virginia. They could identify man-sized targets at 70 yards in total darkness. They could hit those targets with 3 out of 5 rounds. The instructors had told them the system would work in combat. They had told them the battery would last 20 to 30 minutes of continuous use. Then they had issued each operator 5 spare batteries and sent them to Okinawa. At 23:47 hours on April 1st, 1945, nobody knew if any of that was true. James Matsuda sat in his foxhole on the southern perimeter of Kakazu Ridge and stared into darkness. He was 22 years old, born in Sacramento, California, Japanese-American. His parents had been sent to Manzanar internment camp in 1942 under Executive Order 9066. 120,000 Japanese Americans imprisoned by the country they called home. Matsuda had volunteered to fight for that country in March 1943. His older brother Ken was serving with the 442nd Regimental Combat Team in Italy, the most decorated unit in US Army history, proving through blood that Japanese Americans were loyal Americans. Ken's last letter had said, "Prove we belong here, Jimmy. That is all we can do." So Matsuda had joined, had endured racism at Fort Benning, had scored in the top 5% of his gunnery class, had been selected in February 1945 for a special program. Classified. Fort Belvoir. 3 weeks of training on a weapon system that looked like science fiction. The M3 carbine had been built by engineers using cutting-edge infrared technology. The battery pack generated 4,250 volts to power the spotlight and the image converter tube inside the scope. The system weighed 23 pounds more than a standard carbine. It was front-heavy, awkward. The scope's field of view was only 10 degrees. The operator had to scan slowly, sweeping left to right, searching for targets in a narrow cone of green vision. Captain Morrison, the M3 program instructor, had been blunt during training. "This does not exist. You will never speak about it. If you are captured, you destroy it. The battery pack has thermite charges. Pull this pin. You have 5 seconds. Clear." Matsuda had understood. The army would rather kill the operator than let the enemy capture this technology. He had qualified on the system at a range near the invasion staging area. 70-yard man-sized targets in total darkness. He had hit 4 out of 5 rounds. Morrison had told him he was a natural. Now Matsuda sat in a foxhole with the M3 carbine across his lap and 23 dead Americans in the last 72 hours, and he did not know if any of that training meant anything. His squad leader, Corporal Davis, had called the weapon a car battery with a trigger. Private O'Brien had asked what would happen if the Japanese captured Matsuda. Would they think the Americans had sent one of their own as a spy? Another soldier had called the whole thing a science fair project that would get someone killed. Matsuda had said nothing. Let them think what they wanted. At 2351 hours, he heard movement. 60 yards southeast, maybe 70. The sound was faint. Fabric scraping against vegetation. He could not see anything. The darkness was total. Matsuda reached behind him and flipped the switch on the battery pack. The pack began to hum. A faint vibration against his spine. 4,250 volts flowing from lead-acid cells identical to those used in automobile engines. He shouldered the carbine, put his eye to the scope. The field of view was narrow, a 10-degree cone of green-grey static. He had to scan slowly, panning left to right. At first he saw nothing. Vegetation, rocks, coral outcroppings rendered in shades of green. Then he saw a shape. A man, 65 yards southeast, moving low to the ground, crawling forward through a drainage ditch. The figure appeared as a bright green silhouette against the darker green background. Behind him, 2 more shapes appeared. 3 infiltrators moving in single file toward the American perimeter. Matsuda's heart rate increased. His breathing quickened. This was real, not training. Real enemy soldiers crawling toward his position, toward his squad, toward men who could not see them. The lead infiltrator was 63 yards away now, still crawling, professional, cautious. Matsuda placed the green crosshairs on the man's center mass. In the scope, Matsuda could not see the man's face, could not see his eyes, could not see if he looked like Matsuda's uncle Hiroshi, who had taught him to fix cars in Sacramento before the war. He could only see the green outline of a man who would kill his squad mates if Matsuda did not kill him first. He placed his finger on the trigger, applied pressure. The trigger brake was at 4.5 pounds. The carbine fired. The recoil was mild. The muzzle flash was minimal. Through the scope, still trained on target, Matsuda watched the lead infiltrator jerk and collapse. The second man froze. Matsuda worked the trigger again. The second man dropped. The third man began to rise. Matsuda fired a third time. The man fell backward into the drainage ditch. 3 shots, 3 kills, 9 seconds. Matsuda kept the scope active. His heart was pounding, adrenaline flooding his system. His hands were shaking slightly, not from fear, from the sudden realization of what had just happened. He had killed 3 men, 3 human beings, and they had never seen him, had died confused and afraid in the darkness. The drainage ditch remained empty. The surrounding area showed no movement. Matsuda deactivated the scope. Darkness returned. He sat in his foxhole and waited for something to happen inside him. Guilt, horror, satisfaction, pride, something. He felt nothing, just empty. At 0017 hours, Corporal Davis crawled to Matsuda's foxhole. What the hell just happened? Matsuda lowered the carbine. They are down, drainage ditch, 63 yards southeast. Davis stared at him. You saw them. In this dark, Matsuda tapped the scope. This works. From the foxhole to his right, Private O'Brien's voice called out, Jesus Christ, he just killed 3 Japs and we did not even know they were there. At 0100 hours, Lieutenant Hayes arrived. He was 24. led second platoon with the kind of nervous energy that came from knowing his decisions kept men alive or got them killed. Matsuda, Division wants M3 effectiveness reports. How many targets? 3 confirmed, sir. Distance, 63 yards. Total darkness. Hayes looked at the scope. Can you do this every night? Battery lasts 20 to 30 minutes per pack. I have 5 spares. Yes, sir. I can do this every night. Hayes nodded slowly. The other 149 M3 operators reported similar results tonight. Division intelligence thinks we just changed the war. Matsuda did not respond. He had killed 3 men. They were dead. His squad was alive. That was all. But Matsuda did not rest. He sat in his foxhole until dawn. When the sun rose, he walked the perimeter, found the drainage ditch, found the 3 bodies. Japanese soldiers, ages maybe 19 to 23, infantry uniforms, standard rifles. One of them had a small photograph tucked in his jacket pocket. The medical corpsman, a man named Baxter, was checking the bodies. You did this? Yeah. Baxter pulled the photograph from the dead soldier's pocket, held it up. Family photo, parents, younger sister. You want this? Some guys keep count. Matsuda looked at the photo, looked away. No, I do not want to remember their faces. But he had already seen it. Would see it forever. A family in Japan. Parents who would receive a letter saying their son had been killed in action. All because of 3 trigger pulls in the darkness. By 0800 hours, Division had compiled the numbers from the first night of M3 operations. 150 operators. 127 confirmed Japanese casualties. The M3 operators represented 3% of the division's infantry strength, but had accounted for 31% of all Japanese casualties from rifle and carbine fire during night operations. The impossible weapon worked. At the morning briefing, the intelligence officer explained the situation. The enemy does not know what is killing them. They suspect new weapon system, but do not understand the technology. That advantage will not last. They will adapt. Your job is to stay ahead of that adaptation. Matsuda sat in the back of the tent and listened. His hands were steady now. The emptiness from the night before had been replaced by something else. Not pride, not satisfaction, just acceptance. He had a job, kill infiltrators, keep his squad alive. He was good at the job, that was all. In the next 6 days, Matsuda would kill 34 more men. The Japanese would adapt, would try flashlights to blind the scopes, would move during fog and rain. Each adaptation would force Matsuda to adapt. Each night would add to the count. Each kill would make the next one easier. The war was changing. Matsuda was changing with it. April the 2nd, 1:43 hours. Matsuda had repositioned to higher ground, 40 yards behind the main defensive line. Better visibility, better fields of fire. He had learned from the first night. Hunt from advantage. He activated the M3 scope and began scanning. Then he detected movement. 68 yards south-southeast. A single infiltrator moving slowly through thick undergrowth. Experienced. Cautious. Matsuda watched. Did not shoot. Waited for the pattern. The infiltrator reached a clearing, 12 feet wide. He paused at the edge, then stepped into the clearing and ran, fast, head down, minimizing exposure time. Matsuda led the movement, aimed ahead, squeezed. The carbine cracked. The man dropped mid-stride. But through the scope, Matsuda saw something else. 3 more figures, 85 yards out, moving toward the same clearing. They had been following the first man, using him as a scout. The 3 men stopped at the tree line. One of them signaled. They changed direction, moving east, abandoning the clearing approach. Matsuda understood. The Japanese were probing, testing, learning which routes were safe and which were lethal. They were adapting to an enemy they could not see. At 03 and 12 hours, the scope malfunctioned. He had been scanning continuously for 18 minutes when the image began to flicker. Green static, then darkness, then green static again. The infrared spotlight was overheating. Tropical humidity and sustained use had caused condensation. Matsuda shut down the system immediately. If the scope failed, he was just another rifleman with a 28-pound liability. He waited in darkness. 2 minutes of vulnerability. He reactivated. The image returned. Stable. Clear. But he had learned something critical. The system had limits. Heat. Humidity. Sustained use. He had to cycle it. Short bursts. Minimize heat buildup. At 0401 hours, he detected a larger group. 7 men, 73 yards southwest, moving in loose column formation, more organized, more aggressive. They stopped, formed a line. 7 men spread across 30 yards. Then they began advancing. 70 yards, 65 yards, 60 yards. Matsuda decided to engage. He aimed at the center man, fired. The man dropped. The others scattered immediately. Professional reaction. Then they began returning fire. Muzzle flashes erupted in the darkness, yellow bursts of light. But they were firing at the wrong position, aiming at the main defensive line 40 yards ahead of Matsuda. Matsuda tracked the muzzle flashes through his scope. Each time a rifle fired, the flash illuminated the shooter's position for a split second. He developed a rhythm. Wait for the flash. See the bright outline. Aim. Squeeze. He killed 4 men in 23 seconds. Each shot timed to the enemy's own muzzle flashes. The Japanese fire stopped. Silence. 7 infiltrators dead. 0 American casualties in his sector. But the engagement had cost him. 29 rounds expended. His second battery nearly depleted. And he had revealed that the Americans had some capability to engage at range in darkness. The adaptation cycle was accelerating. By dawn on April the 3rd, word of the M3 carbine's effectiveness had spread through the 96th Infantry Division. Other operators reported similar results. Private Eugene Wilson had killed 6 infiltrators in a single engagement. Corporal James Harkley had detected a 12-man infiltration group at 75 yards and directed machine gun fire to eliminate them. The 150 M3 operators were functioning as force multipliers. They could see the enemy in total darkness. They could engage at ranges where the enemy believed they were invisible. They were changing the tactical equation. But on the Japanese side, confusion was turning into fear. A captured intelligence document revealed the enemy's assessment. Battalion Intelligence Report, April the 3rd, 1945. Night operations resulted in catastrophic casualties. 127 confirmed killed in action. Contact reports indicate no muzzle flashes observed prior to casualties. No tracer rounds detected. Effective range exceeds 70 yards in total darkness. Current assessment is Americans deployed new optical weapon system. Nature unknown. Countermeasures under development. They thought each M3 operator was multiple people. Matsuda's rapid position changes had created that illusion. April 5th, 2:28 hours. Heavy fog rolled in from the coast. Visibility dropped to less than 200 feet. Most soldiers assumed combat operations would cease. Matsuda activated his scope anyway. The infrared system could penetrate fog better than visible light, but the effective range was cut in half. 35 to 40 yards maximum. At 0241 hours, he detected movement at the edge of his reduced visibility range. Multiple shapes. At least 10. advancing through the fog in a skirmish line. The Japanese had realized the weather provided protection. Matsuda fired at the nearest shape. Hit. The others continued advancing, not retreating, pressing forward, 30 yards, 25 yards. He fired again. Hit a second target. The line kept coming. 20 yards now. Almost at the perimeter. Matsuda switched the carbine to full automatic, pointed the muzzle at the advancing line, and held the trigger down. The carbine emptied its 15-round magazine in less than 2 seconds. He loaded a fresh magazine, fired another sustained burst. The advancing infiltrators broke. Some retreated. Some went to ground. The fog lifted at 0347 hours. Matsuda counted 7 Japanese bodies in the area he had engaged. 3 more were found 15 yards from the American perimeter. Corporal Davis found him after sunrise. "You okay?" They almost made it. Another 10 seconds and they would have been inside the perimeter. But they did not make it. You stopped them. I had to switch to full auto. Spray and pray. That is not precision. That is desperation. Davis gripped his shoulder. You kept them away from us. That is all that matters. But Matsuda knew the truth. The system had limits. Fog reduced range. Rain would likely do the same. The M3 carbine was not invincible. April 6th. 3 new M3 operators were assigned to Matsuda's platoon. Private Eugene Wilson from West Virginia, 25 years old. Coal miner, competitive, Corporal James Harkley, Texas rancher, 28. Methodical, Private Bobby Chen from San Francisco, Chinese-American, 20 years old, eager. Wilson approached Matsuda with a grin. "So you are the guy with 19 kills. Not bad for a Jap." Matsuda stared at him. "Say that again." Harkley intervened. Wilson shut up. Matsuda ignore him. He is an ass, but he is good. Bobby Chen approached with obvious respect. "Mr. Matsuda, I heard you are the best M3 operator. Can you teach me?" Matsuda looked at Chen. Saw himself 7 weeks ago. Young, nervous, idealistic. First lesson. It is not a competition. It is survival. You keep your squad mates alive. That is all that matters. Lieutenant Hayes assigned them to overlapping sectors. 4 M3 operators covering a 200-yard front. Multiple angles of observation. Redundant capability. Hayes understood force multiplication. April 9th, 0245 hours. Matsuda detected a large group forming 90 yards south. At least 12 men. This was beyond his capability for solo engagement. Too many targets. He grabbed the field phone. "Harkley, you got eyes on sector southeast, 85 yards. Negative. Checking now. Pause. Got them. 12 contacts moving in 2 columns. Too many. We need machine gun support." Harkley called Lieutenant Hayes. Within 2 minutes, 2 .30 caliber machine gun teams had repositioned. Waiting. Silent. Matsuda and Harkley provided real-time coordinates over the field phone. 78 yards moving northwest, 72 yards spreading into skirmish line, 65 yards approaching clearing. Hayes came on the radio net. "Machine guns stand by. M3 operators mark targets with tracer on my command." The Japanese force reached 60 yards, optimal range. Hayes gave the command, "Mark targets now." Matsuda loaded a tracer round, fired. The red streak cut through darkness and struck the lead infiltrator. Harkley fired simultaneously. 2 red lines of light illuminating enemy positions. The machine guns opened fire. 30 caliber rounds ripped through the infiltration line at 850 rounds per minute, combined rate of fire. Devastating. The Japanese formation disintegrated. The engagement lasted 40 seconds. 11 Japanese soldiers lay dead, 1 wounded, captured, 0 American casualties. Hayes arrived at Matsuda's position. That is how M3 operators force multiply. You turned a potential disaster into a turkey shoot. The captured Japanese soldier was interrogated the next morning. Prisoner states his unit was ordered to probe American lines to identify ghost positions, locations where soldiers disappear without contact. Unit commander believed Americans deployed new weapon, possibly poison gas or silent firearms. Morale described as very low. Soldiers afraid to conduct night operations. The M3 operators had achieved psychological impact. The enemy was afraid. Disorganized, changing doctrine. April 12th. A Japanese intelligence document was captured. The translation arrived that afternoon. Directive to all units. Night surface operations will be limited to final defensive positions only. Infiltration operations will be conducted only during periods of adverse weather or limited visibility. All units will prioritize defensive positions in caves and underground complexes where enemy observation is impossible. Captain Morrison flew to Okinawa from Fort Belvoir. Gentlemen, you have achieved strategic impact. You forced a doctrinal change in enemy tactics. Japanese night infiltration is effectively over. The room erupted in celebration. But Matsuda felt no satisfaction. He raised his hand. Sir, they are not beaten. They are adapting. Now they will fight from caves during daylight. Different problem. Same enemy. Morrison nodded. Correct. But you removed one of their tactical advantages. You made the night belong to America. By April the 12th, the 96th Infantry Division had documented 412 confirmed Japanese casualties from rifle and carbine fire during night operations. 127 were attributed to M3 operators. The operators represented 3% of the division's infantry strength, but had accounted for 31% of night combat kills. Sectors covered by M3 operators experienced 94% fewer American casualties from infiltration. The numbers told the story. The weapon worked. The operators were effective. But the cost was beginning to show. Matsuda's kill count stood at 34 confirmed. 34 men who had died without seeing who killed them. 34 families in Japan who would receive letters saying killed in action. And the nights were getting harder, not easier. The first kill had felt like murder. The 34th felt like routine, and that transition from horror to routine was worse than the killing itself. On the night of April 22nd, something changed. Matsuda detected a single infiltrator at 58 yards, moving slowly, limping, wounded perhaps. The man stopped, sat down, head bowed. Matsuda aimed, finger on trigger, and stopped. The shape was not advancing, not threatening, just sitting. Exhausted, beaten. He should shoot. Enemy soldier, potential threat, rules of engagement. But Matsuda could not like this, not execution. He watched for 5 minutes. The shape did not move toward American lines. Eventually the man stood, limped away south, disappeared. Matsuda did not report the contact, did not shoot, let one go. Davis found out the next day. You let him go. He was not a threat. He was beaten. You do not get to make that call. Matsuda interrupted. Rules of engagement do not cover what I do. I see men in darkness they cannot see me in. I decide who lives and dies. That is the job. Davis studied his face, saw exhaustion, moral weight. Jimmy, you need to take a break. Request rotation off M3 duty. No, these guys need me. Then what do you need? Matsuda had no answer. He had killed 34 men, had let one live, and he did not know which decision would haunt him more. May 23rd, 03:12 hours. The narrative had come full circle. Matsuda sat in his foxhole covering the approach to the command post. 52 nights of operations. 37 confirmed kills, plus 1 mercy. He activated the scope one final time. The battery pack hummed. The green field of view appeared. He scanned his sector methodically. The Japanese had largely abandoned night infiltration. His job had become mostly observation, watching empty darkness. Then he saw them. 3 shapes, 72 yards northeast, moving toward the command post. Deliberate approach, professional movement. He watched them close distance. Optimal engagement range, crosshairs on lead shape, controlled breathing, squeeze, fire, shift, fire, shift, fire. 3 shots, 3 kills, 6 seconds. He deactivated the scope, sat in darkness, and felt the same nothing he had felt for weeks, just mechanical completion of a task. He had become what the job required, an efficient killer. Lieutenant Hayes found him at dawn. Matsuda, hell of a shot. Clean work. Thank you, sir. You have been on M3 duty for 52 days straight. I am rotating you off. You need rest. Sir, I can keep going. That is an order, Private. You are done with night operations, effective immediately. Matsuda understood. Hayes was giving him an exit, a chance to stop before he crossed a line he could not return from. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. June 22nd, 1945. The Battle of Okinawa ended after 82 days of combat. The 96th Infantry Division had suffered 6,548 casualties. The final statistics were compiled. 150 M3 operators deployed. 127 confirmed kills in the first week alone. 31% of all rifle and carbine casualties during night operations attributed to 3% of the infantry force. The weapon had worked. The program had succeeded. The operators had changed the war. But no medals were awarded. The M3 carbine remained classified. The operators remained anonymous. July 1945. The 96th Division relocated to the Philippines for rest and refit. Preparation for Operation Downfall, the planned invasion of the Japanese home islands. Intelligence estimates predicted 1 million American casualties. The Army planned to manufacture 20,000 M3 carbine systems. Matsuda was assigned as an instructor, teaching 50 new operators the techniques he had developed over 52 nights. Private Bobby Chen approached him during a training break. "Mr. Matsuda, are you scared? For the invasion?" "Yes." "Me too. They say mainland Japan will be worse than Okinawa. 10 times worse." Chen hesitated. "Mr. Matsuda, when you shoot through the scope, do you think about who they are?" Matsuda remembered the photo in the dead soldier's pocket, the limping shape he had let go, the 37 confirmed kills. "I try not to. But yes, I think about who they were, who they could have been." "How do you live with it?" "I do not know yet. Ask me when the war is over." August 15th, 1945. The radio announcement came at noon. Japan had surrendered. The war was over. Operation Downfall was cancelled. The invasion would not happen. The entire camp erupted. Men screaming, crying, hugging. Years of war ending in a single moment. Matsuda sat on his cot in the tent. The M3 carbine was disassembled on his footlocker. Scope separated from rifle. Battery pack disconnected. The weapon in pieces just like the man who had used it. He felt nothing. No joy, no relief, just emptiness. Corporal Harkley found him. "Jimmy, we won. It is over. We are going home." "I know." "Then why are you not celebrating?" Matsuda looked at the scope components. "I do not know how to not be this anymore." Harkley sat beside him, said nothing for a long time. We will figure it out, together. But Matsuda knew some things could not be figured out. Some transformations were permanent. September 1945. The army ordered all M3 carbines destroyed. The technology remained classified, could not risk foreign powers capturing or studying the systems. Demolition teams used cutting torches. Matsuda watched his M3 carbine. Serial number M30847, the weapon that had kept him alive for 52 nights, cut apart, rendered into scrap metal. The operators were required to sign non-disclosure agreements. Forbidden from discussing the M3 program, threatened with court-martial for violations. Private Bobby Chen stood beside Matsuda, watching the destruction. It is like it never happened. Like we did not change the war. We know it happened. That is enough. But it was not enough. 37 confirmed kills. 37 men dead. And now the weapon that killed them was being destroyed. The evidence eliminated. The story buried. October 28, 1945. Matsuda arrived at Sacramento train station. His parents were waiting. His mother cried when she saw him. His father embraced him. "Welcome home, son. Your brother Ken is coming home from Italy next month. He survived. He survived. You both did." They drove through Sacramento. The Japanese neighborhoods were still recovering from the evacuation. Houses reclaimed from government storage, gardens destroyed. The Matsuda family home had been returned, furniture damaged, personal belongings lost. His mother's garden was dirt and weeds. We will rebuild, make it home again. But Matsuda looked at the walls and could not imagine living here, could not imagine being a civilian. That life belonged to someone else, someone who had died on Okinawa even though his body had come home. The first week back, his parents asked questions. What did you do in the war? Were you in danger? Infantry. Standard duty. Sometimes. I did what I had to do. They heard the tone in his voice, stopped asking. The silence grew. November 15th, 1945. Ken Matsuda returned from Italy. The brothers reunited. Ken was covered in medals, Bronze Star, Purple Heart. The 442nd Regimental Combat Team had become the most decorated unit in U.S. Army history. Ken looked at his younger brother. "Jimmy, you look different. Harder. So do you. What did you do over there? What was your job?" Matsuda remembered the non-disclosure agreement. 37 kills that nobody could know about. Cannot talk about it. Classified. Ken studied his face. "You saw heavy combat." "Yeah." "How heavy?" "Heavy enough." Ken nodded. Both brothers understood. They carried different weights, different memories. The details did not matter. The burden was the same. 3 months home. January 1946. The nightmares began. Same dream every night. Bright silhouettes advancing through darkness. Matsuda shoots. They keep coming. An infinite line of phosphorescent shapes moving toward him. He fires until the magazine is empty. Reloads. Fires again. They never stop. And now the shapes have faces. Young Japanese faces. Faces that look like his uncles, his cousins. His own face reflected in a mirror. He woke gasping, sweat soaked, heart pounding, every night. His mother heard him one night, found him sitting on the floor of his childhood bedroom, head in his hands. "Jimmy, you have nightmares." "I am fine. You are not fine. You talk in your sleep. In Japanese, you say I am sorry over and over." Matsuda looked at his mother, wanted to tell her everything. "I cannot talk about it, Mum. I signed papers. I could go to jail." She sat beside him. "Then do not tell me what you did. Tell me how you feel." Long silence. "I killed men, Mum. A lot of men. Men who looked like us, who spoke like us. And I was good at it. Too good." His mother held him, did not speak, just held him while he shook, while tears came for the first time since Okinawa. She did not ask how many, just held her son and let him cry. Matsuda went to work in his father's garage, fixing cars, using the mechanical skills from before the war. Carburetors and transmissions did not shoot back, did not die, did not haunt dreams. One day, a veteran came into the garage. Army sergeant, late 30s. He noticed Matsuda's 96th Infantry Division patch on the wall. "You were on Okinawa, yes. Me too. 381st Infantry. We got hit hard by night infiltration first week. Then something changed. Infiltrators stopped getting through. We never knew why." Matsuda tightened a bolt, kept his eyes on the engine. "Maybe you got better defenses." "Maybe. But I always wondered. We heard rumors about secret weapons, night vision stuff. You hear anything about that?" Matsuda met the sergeant's eyes. "Rumors are just rumors." The sergeant nodded slowly. "Well, whatever happened, it saved my life. I was on perimeter duty those first nights. Should have died, did not. So thanks to whoever made that happen. You are welcome." The sergeant left. Matsuda stood in the garage holding a wrench and understanding something. He could not talk about the M3 program, could not tell anyone what he had done. But the results spoke louder than words. Men who were alive because infiltrators had not reached them, families intact because fathers had come home. The 37 men he killed had faces somewhere, families somewhere. But so did the men he had saved. The moral equation did not balance, could never balance. But perhaps it did not have to. Perhaps duty was about doing what needed to be done and living with the consequences. Private Bobby Chen sent a letter in March 1946. "Dear Mr. Matsuda, I hope this letter finds you well. I am back home in San Francisco working in my father's restaurant. I think about those nights often. The scope, the glowing shapes, the weight of responsibility. I have nightmares. Do you? You saved my life, Mr. Matsuda. You taught me how to survive. I wanted you to know that mattered. Respectfully, Bobby Chen." Matsuda folded the letter, put it in a drawer. Maybe that was balance. Maybe that was enough. The years passed. Matsuda married, had children, worked in the garage, never discussed the war. His wife knew he had served. His children knew their father had been a soldier, but the details remained classified. The silence continued. The year 1970. Matsuda was 47 years old, watching television news coverage of the Vietnam War. The reporter described new night vision technology called starlight scopes. American forces could see enemy movement in total darkness. Footage showed soldiers with scopes mounted on rifles. Different design from the M3, smaller, lighter, more advanced. But the principle was the same. Matsuda recognized his legacy immediately. The technology he had used 25 years earlier, refined, improved, deployed on a massive scale. His father sat beside him. "Jimmy, you are staring. I know that technology. From the war, from what I cannot talk about. The year 1985. The M3 carbine program was declassified. 40 years after the war. Technical manuals published. Historical reports released. The report mentioned 150 operators, 127 confirmed kills first week. Strategic impact forcing doctrinal change. His name appeared once. Private First Class James Matsuda, 96th Infantry Division, 37 confirmed night engagements, exemplary performance under combat conditions. One sentence. 37 lives reduced to 3 words. Bobby Chen called that weak. Mr. Matsuda, did you see the declassification? I saw it. They made it sound so clean, so technical. It was not like that. No, it was not. Do you ever regret it? Matsuda thought about glowing shapes, about the photo in the dead soldier's pocket, about the limping figure he had let go, every day. But I would do it again, because the alternative was worse. The year 1991, the Gulf War, another generation, another conflict, more night vision technology. Matsuda's grandson Michael enlisted in the Marines, 19 years old, eager, idealistic. Michael visited before deployment. Grandpa, they are sending me to Kuwait. I am scared. Matsuda looked at his grandson and saw himself at 22. You should be scared. Fear keeps you alive. Dad said you were in World War II. Did you see combat? Yes. What was it like? It was necessary. It was terrible. And it changed me forever. Do you think I will change? Yes. But you will still be you, just different. Michael hugged his grandfather. I love you, Grandpa. I love you too, Michael. Be careful. Come home. The year 1992. Michael returned from Iraq, found Matsuda in the garage. Grandpa, I used night vision goggles in Iraq. PVS 7. I could see everything at night. It was like magic. One of the older sergeants told me the technology started in World War II, something called M3 carbine. Only 150 guys used it. Grandpa, were you one of them? Matsuda looked at his grandson, thought about the non-disclosure agreement signed 47 years earlier, thought about decades of silence. Yes. Holy shit. Grandpa, you are part of history, the beginning of modern night fighting. I am part of something. I do not know if it is history or just killing that never ends. Michael did not understand. But you saved lives. I took lives to save lives. There is a difference. Grandpa, the technology you used saved me. In Iraq, I could see enemy positions before they saw me. I lived because you started this. Matsuda felt something shift inside. Not lighter, not resolved, just different. Then I am glad that something good came from it. The year 2000. Matsuda was 77 years old, diagnosed with cancer. The doctors gave him months. Treatment did not go well. Ken visited. Both of them veterans of a war 60 years past. Jimmy, you gonna be okay? I am dying, Ken. That is the definition of not okay. You know what I mean. You at peace. Matsuda thought about 37 confirmed kills, about shapes that still move through his dreams after 55 years. No, but I am accepting. That is close enough. You did what you had to do. We both did. You got medals, Ken. Recognition. I got a sentence in a declassified document. You got something better. You got men who lived because of you. That is worth more than medals. Matsuda wanted to believe that. Mostly did. In his final weeks, Matsuda wrote a letter to Michael. Dear Michael, by the time you read this, I will be gone. I killed 37 men during World War II. I can tell you that now. The number never left me. Every single one. The M3 carbine gave me advantage those men never had. I could see them. They could not see me. Some people call that tactical superiority. I call it unfair. But war is not fair. And if being unfair saved American lives, then I would do it again. I have to believe that, or everything I did was murder. You asked me once if I had regrets. Yes, I regret every life I took, but I do not regret keeping my brothers alive. That is the paradox of war. You can regret what you did and know it was necessary at the same time. The technology I used became the technology you used. That is my legacy. Not pride, not shame, just consequence. Good men live because of it. Bad men die because of it. And sometimes you cannot tell the difference. Be better than I was, Michael. Use the tools you have, but never forget the cost. Every life matters, even the enemies, especially the enemies. I am proud of you. I am proud you served. I am proud you came home. Do not lose yourself in the darkness the way I did. Love, always. Grandpa Jimmy. James Matsuda died peacefully in March 2006, 83 years old. Military funeral with full honors. His family had the letter, had the story, had the truth he had carried for 61 years. Bobby Chen traveled from San Francisco to attend, now 81 years old. He found Michael after the service. Your grandfather was the best man I knew. He taught me what it meant to serve, to protect, to carry weight without complaint. The year 2010. The U.S. Army Ordnance Museum opened a new exhibit. World War II Innovations. One display case contained a reconstructed M3 carbine from surviving components. The placard read, M3 Carbine Night Vision System, 1945. 150 operators deployed to Okinawa. Forced Japanese abandonment of night infiltration tactics. Foundation of modern night vision technology. Operators remain largely anonymous. Beside the display was a photograph. 96th Infantry Division group photo from April 1945. Third row, fifth from left. Private First Class James Matsuda, age 22, holding an M3 carbine. Face serious, eyes distant, already carrying a weight he would never put down. Visitors walked past the display. Most moved on quickly. A few stopped. Understood they were looking at the beginning of something. The first step in a technology that would define modern warfare. None of them knew about the 37 men, about the glowing shapes in darkness, about the limping figure shown mercy, about the nightmares that lasted 61 years. The museum was silent. The weapon was dead. The operator was gone. But the legacy continued. Every American soldier who had ever seen through night vision, every life saved by that capability, all of it traced back to 150 men who carried car batteries and experimental scopes across Okinawa in 1945. Most of those men died anonymous, their names in declassified documents nobody reads, their sacrifices unrecognized, their moral burdens carried in silence until the day they died. But James Matsuda's story and the stories of the other 149 deserve more than footnotes. They deserve to be remembered, not as heroes. Matsuda would have rejected that word, but as men who did what was necessary when necessity demanded innovation, as soldiers who saw in darkness and paid the price for that vision. Some ghosts never leave. Some scopes never stop showing shapes in the darkness. But the men who lived because of them remember. They honor. They continue. And that has to be enough. Because some histories are too important to remain forgotten. Some weights are too heavy to carry alone. Some stories need to be told even if they come 60 years too late. James Matsuda fought a war the enemy could not see. Won it in the darkness, one glowing shape at a time 70 yards away. The Japanese called it impossible. The American command called it experimental. Matsuda called it duty. And he carried that duty for 61 years until the day he died. 37 men killed. But how many saved? The count goes on. Unmeasured, uncounted, infinite. That is the invisible ledger of war. You can count the dead. You cannot count the saved. And in that gap between what is lost and what is preserved